you little bastard.
Oh.
Whack. I got it earlier, you had a really happy face. Now you got a fucked off one. Oh, fucking wait!
I called for help twice, and not a fuck you, what do you need, or nothing.
Whack. Skill!
So in trying to find a way to counter things like shock and explosives, as well as the one-tap grenade build, because I've had one before, it's been in a previous codex, which was an explosive resistance based on the SMG. The problem was the shock, so I want to do a double counter to both of these things that are going to be in the DZ, especially with the one-tap grenade build. Now, traps beforehand were a plague, and now they've added in the grenade. So was explosive resistance actually working against the traps? No, it wasn't, but it does work against the grenade. So we made a build that counters both of those, but also still gives you the damage, if that makes any sense. We wanted to be able to give you the damage and the counter, so this is what we came up with. So basically, while we were making this build, it was trying to find a way to give the player the most damage and counter two different aspects at one time that are actually hurting the DZ to some people's personal belief. Now me, it's in the game, use it, it's fine. Some people call it trolling or trash, whatever, you can call it that if you want. But this is what we decided to come up with, and this is my design of where I put up stuff. Now, the Grenadier, this is by choice, player's choice. You can put whatever you want right here. The Grenadier isn't going to help too much of anything else. You can put whatever you want. Me, personally, I would put on Firewall, Grenadier, or Survivalist. That's about it, of the three. Because those are the only ones that are really going to benefit from this, because the Grenadier just allows you, if they crack your armor, to get that extra damage out because you can reload your mag, but it also gives you a few extra ways to get out status effects and, you know, some survivability. So the Saint Elmos, that's the main weapon to this build. Now, the reason why we're using the Saint Elmos is because while you can do a counter, players who are not using this counter, you can then use this to your benefit and take them down by using the stuff that you're trying to counter, in a sense. The sledgehammer on the shotgun is just a backup in case you want to get that out for your team or something else. So you can put whatever you want for your shotgun. Now, before we go into the build, we got to show the stats. Now, we're at 52% right here and 152 for critical hit damage. So we got good crits, good critical hit damage. Now, we have no damage to player's armor, no damage to targets out of cover, which, unless it's on the gun, but we have perfect amount of explosive resistance, 80%. Now, we also need to try in this video to explain how much explosive resistance is, if we can actually max it out or not. We have 50% burn resistance and 90% shock resistance, which that way anybody who shoots you with a shock, you will not take any effects in the DZ. Now that's where you want to be at with this build. So in the build, we have one piece of Seska and a shock resistance mod. Now, we could put a piece on there where the crit chance is for explosive resistance, but I'll get into that later on. We have explosive resistance and Wicked on our backpack. Now, we can get Wicked out 3 different ways with this build. One with the gun, which would be your St. Elmo's, because you're going to get shock rounds. Or if you want to get Wicked out, you could come over here and put on the holster as well. So this way, this gives you the shock resistance of 50% at the very top when you equip this. So now you can actually hit the player every 15 seconds, and since the cooldown on Wicked is 20 seconds, as you can see right here, you can basically every 15 seconds hit a player or hit an NPC or hit something and boom, get your shock back. Having the shield on is also going to boost all that shock from the St. Elmo's and the holster to where now you can apply it to other players nearby. Now, because we're using the St. Elmo's, we're going to put one piece of Fenris on right here, so that way we can instantaneously get the extra damage, and we have one piece of new Legmo and one piece Y'all gear for the hazard protection, but as you can see, we have explosive resistance. Now, you do not have to put the Y'all gear on your knee pads. You can put it on your mask because you can craft a mask. You can craft it on your chest piece, so if you want to put those in those spots, by all means, if you have the stuff, you could, but don't put it in the holster because you need the holster for this build. So, whatever other skill you want, that's on you. That's fine. Just whatever skill you want. But again, we can get this grenade right here on our own player, and since this is similar, not identical, this is similar to what the chest piece would do. Okay, it didn't work. This is similar to what the chest piece would do to you if you actually tossed a grenade on your own character. This is what it would look like as for the damage from that chest piece. So this would stop the one tap build. This would cause probably about 6 or 7 grenades to be tossed on you before you would die. So let's clear it off. Let's show you the, okay, I got full bars. I'm going to show you how many bars it takes off. And toss. Should be about 4 or 5. Yeah, close to about 4 or 5. So you'll only lose about 4 or 5 bars from a grenade, and that's about it. So here's the main question from this is, can we max out to prevent this from having to worry about too much more damage? What is the max explosive resistance? I have been asked this question since the introduction of this new chest piece. So I went and I crafted a few pieces of RNK, and you can see right here we have this RNK with explosive resistance, and we have another piece of RNK for the mask for explosive resistance. Now, these right here would give us an extra 30, but we only have, what, this one on the chest. So this would actually give us an extra 20%. So we're at 80 right now. Let's see if we can get to 100. Let's see if explosive resistance caps, or if we can actually get 100% explosive resistance. So our Seska mask doesn't have it, so that automatically gives us 10% more. So that should put us at 90, right? Okay, let's go check the stats. We're at 90%. Okay, so if I put this second piece of RNK on, this would give us an extra 10, which should put us to 100, right? If we get to 100, we'll go check the stats. It should say 100. Simple as that. And what do you know? 90%. So there is a cap. So there's literally no point in putting in that extra 10% on your build like I have on my Seska and getting that crit chance out for our bullets, then getting that extra 10% to get to 90 when we'll be at 80% explosive resistance. This way our gun stays doing good damage and we're not trading damage for survivability. So having 52 and 152 is the perfect amount of crit chance and critical hit damage for PvP. So this way we don't lose damage to our weapons again, and we have the perfect amount of survivability on the build for status and explosives.
Much later.
So now we're going to get into the damage, and I'm going to show you another way after this is done, another way to possibly make a decent build out of this as well, if you don't like to use the AR and you want to use SMGs. But first, let's show the damage. So we're sitting right there, pretty decent. Yeah, 238, that's pretty decent. Remember what 30 something, 304, 308 in the first. So not bad. Good, decent damage for headshots and chest piece. Now that we got status, because we could reload, oh, look at that. Yep, a little bit more. Okay, a little bit more. That's from the Wicked. So we can actually get decent damage out of this without trading anything else. We have the proper amount of survivability and the proper amount of damage. But again, like I said, we can also toss a grenade like this, hit the target with sledgehammer, with a regular grenade. But there's also an added bonus to this because, again, as we have our status, we have sledgehammer. Now we're hitting for like, what, 400 something? Really good. So we can also toss on this grenade, though it has a smaller radius. This one causes a bleed. So this is another way to get out the wicked effect. And boom, right there. Now we have wicked. 475. So if a player on your teammate is throwing sledgehammer, you can easily get some way more damage right there and still have the crit chance and critical hit damage. So we're going to trade these two pieces right here, and we're going to trade the weapon out to show you another way to do this if you want, because a lot of people want to use the Ouroboros. Because now if they do a status effect to you because you have 50% burn resistance, you can easily put this on to get some damage out from your SMG survivability, to where you're also not taking shock damage, you're also not taking explosive damage. This allows you to get up close and personal. So where I have the weapon handling on this Sokolov mask, you would just want crit chance. And on the chest piece, I believe I have hazard protection there. You just want explosive resistance on your chest piece. And it would literally be identical to that build. Yeah, see, hazard protection, so we would just trade that out. And that's literally all you would do. You'd be at the same amount or a little bit more because you have 6%, so you'd be 51% critical hit chance. And you'd have the critical hit damage to boot. And you'd have the same amount of explosive resistance, and then just put in a shock resistant mod like this maxed out, and you'll be at the right amount. And that's easy, simple. And just put in your critical hit damage here.